This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Welcome to the Parent Footprint Podcast with Dr. Dan. I am Dr. Dan, your host. And let me tell you about Parent Footprint, where our mission is to make the world a more loving and compassionate place, one parent and one child at a time. At Parent Footprint, we believe the key to raising happy, healthy, and engaged kids is for us parents to seek the same. Seek our own happiness, our own health, our own engagement. And we firmly believe that awareness is the foundation for you to create your vision of successful parenting. And with this increased awareness and intention, we can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint on our children. Today's topic is directly related to leaving a healthy footprint on our kids, as we are all living in this social experiment called technology and the internet. Today's show is called Ain't You Got No Manners? Should you be friends with your kids on social media? And we're going to learn about this from our expert guest and author, Kristin Johnson. Kristin is a prize-winning writer, blogger, ghostwriting and creative writing consultant, screenwriter, and editor. She's a graduate of the former Master of Professional Writing program from the University of Southern California, and she has published and collaborated on 7 books. Her current book, which we're going to talk about, Ain't You Got No Manners, has been called The Bible for Social Media. Kristin is a member of the Desert Screenwriters Guild, Society of Children's Books and Illustrators, and Palm Springs Women in Film and Television. Kristin, welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. It is a pleasure to be here.
I've been very much looking forward to this topic. This is a topic that is in my household with 3 teenagers daily, and comes into play in just about every session I have with a client every day throughout the week. So
I hear you. How old are your kids?
14, 16, and 18.
Oh, boy. So you are in the social media trenches. You are in the digital, Snapchatting, texting, emoji, Instagram, Finsta, Rinsta, the whole 9 yards.
The Finsta. We'll have to talk about the Finsta because I think a lot of parents, unfortunately, do not know about the Finsta. So, hey, guys, stay tuned for the Finsta. They don't. You need to know this. Okay, so Kristin, given all of your experience in writing, and how did you stumble or not stumble on this topic and this book and become an expert in this?
So I had started an etiquette book several years ago. It was a collaborative project that unfortunately didn't work out and languished in the proverbial drawer. And then my editor fished it out years later and said, you know what? We should still do a manners book, but we should update it. And this was 2015 when social media was just, it already had exploded, but obviously this was when the 2016 presidential campaign was really heating up. We had all the social media stories breaking that way. And it was just an incredible time. And look what has happened in the 3 years since then with all the revelations about Facebook and everything, and Twitter and YouTube, so many things, Google. So really it came about because social media as a topic I knew was not going away. And my editor and I needed to update some of the stuff in the book because when we at the time of the original writing, cell phones were not as prevalent as they were. Facebook was still a gleam in Mark Zuckerberg's eye. Steve Jobs hadn't even come out with iPhone. So it was really a ripe time. It's all a question of timing in life,
Yep.
and especially with book writing. Yeah, you know it. You've written your book from worrier to warrior.
You got that right.
Yep. You know the timing for books. There's just nothing like getting the right timing. And about that time that I was conceiving of this project, my late mother, who was a children's author herself and librarian, she said, email programs have a save button, they have a send button, but they should have a think button, as in, do you really want to post that? And I said, yeah, that's the whole theme of the book. So that's really how I embarked on this social media journey and just really exploring the wilds of the internet. And I'm not a parent myself, disclaimer, but I am an aunt, and I do have 2 teenagers in my life. So that definitely played a role.
And so was there a big aha for you when you dove into this? I mean, something that just like surprised or smacked you in the face as you dove into this huge world?
I think how pervasive it is. Even the pleasant stuff like posting pictures of food and posting pleasant stuff, pictures of pleasant events and things like that, just how compelled we are by the phones and the devices and the internet. And on the other side of it, there are people that just say, I don't want to have anything to do with social media, and I just don't understand what all the fuss is about. And then there are people that have quit social media for various reasons, and there's just a whole host of research on. I mean, you see this every day. You talk to your clients, you research, you read the studies. There's the picture of what social media is doing to the society, good and bad, is still evolving, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. Social media is it's here to stay, as you said, and there's the positive aspects, and we know more and more research is coming out about also there are some negative aspects too. So what I guess I want to ask you straight on as we unpack this. The subtitle of today's talk is "Should you be friends with your kids on social media?" And there's different views on that. So what do you think?
I think that every parent has to set their own guidelines, and every parent has to determine what is right for them, knowing their child. And also, but studies I've read said, yeah, absolutely. But one thing I have learned being the aunt of 2 teenagers, one thing I've learned from them and all their friends is you can friend your kids on social media, but absolutely do not go and friend all their friends on social media. That is a big no-no.
Big taboo.
Unless you know their friends really, really well. Like unless you have a relationship with them or your child says it's okay, because it just kind of looks stalkerish. It looks like helicopter parenting. And they will definitely just shut down, and they'll get blowback from their friends. And really, honestly, most parents probably don't have the time to sift through all those social media accounts and updates and so and what their kids were doing and what their kids' friends are doing. But friends with the kids on social media, probably okay, but friends with all their friends, proceed with caution.
Right. And when my wife and I have this chat a lot, we think about, okay, we do know lots of people who read their kids' texts and do have a requirement of they need to be friends with their kids on their varying social media accounts in order for them to have it. And we're conflicted because we say, gosh, if our parents were listening to our 2-hour-long phone calls in our day, and our parents were reading our notes that we were passing back and forth to our friends, like what an invasion of our privacy, and how much, stuff that maybe we didn't want them to see or hear did we work out in those modalities? So how do you draw the line, which is what is being respectful of privacy, but also being hyper vigilant and aware of some of the negatives that transpire over social media?
Well, that is a really great question. And again, I think a lot of parents have to set that for themselves. Obviously, every child is different. Obviously, you don't want to invade and infringe on their privacy too much. And again, they should have that space with their friends to be able to have their texting and things like that, and social media and so on. But the thing is, you are probably never going to know everything that your kid is doing anyway on social media or texting, because kids are smart. We talked about Finsta with the fake Instagram. Kids will find a way to duck parent scrutiny. I think that's just a kid thing. It's a rite of passage. And honestly, you're right. There are things that we wouldn't have wanted our parents to open and read our diaries back when kids still kept diaries. Mine had the little strawberries on it with a lock on it, but we wouldn't have wanted that. So I wonder is this any different? Obviously, if there's something that they really need to know, if there's bullying going on and things like that, or I mean serious cyberbullying and threats and so on. But again, where do you draw the line between what's a threat and what's just a kid that doesn't really understand the gravity of this technology? I mean, where do you draw the line between that? I think one of your guests talked about it. I think Katie Hurley talked about it, where some of it is just a lack of social skills, and some of it may not be genuine bullying.
Right. And for everyone listening, again, just to reiterate, one of your things that you might be learning today is what a Finsta is. I was taught this by my youngest in a very matter-of-fact way. Yeah, Dad, everyone has a Finsta. That is a fake Instagram, and that is so they can be whoever they want to be and post whatever they want to post on this thing that you don't have access to when you have access to their other thing. So again, we were all sneaky. They're sneaky too. Taking a step back here, Kristin, so Parent Footprint, as you know, one of our main premises is our kids are always watching, our kids are always hearing. We are their role models, and they're absorbing everything we do. So it's
Isn't that the truth?
Right. So we are the models, and social media consumption, usage, manners, we have to set the tone in our homes. So when it comes to manners in social media, what do you recommend to parents, to adults?
Oh gosh, there's just so much. I think that to be educated but not be inundated, and to just be aware of stuff like Finsta, and also to realize that I was talking to one of my friends who happens to be a parent, and she reminded me that one of the things that she would advise is that kids need to know that what you post is out there forever. You really can't take it back. But at the same time, they know that, but I'm not sure they really know that, if that makes sense.
It does. And from a brain development perspective, adolescents don't fully understand they don't understand absolute consequences that can't be changed, which is why the adolescent brain is primed to do things in the moment that might not be the best idea. And with that is this issue comes right into play, because anytime, anywhere, you can say and do anything and then press send. And what we know from some famous people and TV and movie stars who do that in the middle of the night and don't think it through, it has some very negative consequences on their personal and
Kevin
professional
Hart.
life.
I mean, look at Kevin Hart with the Oscars. He said some things
Yes.
years ago, and he's apologized and everything. And I was on another podcast, and somebody mentioned, can't we all get a statute of limitations for how long ago you said something stupid? Because everybody has said
Right.
something stupid on the internet. And I think as adults, we need to sort of stop obsessing over that, obsessing over everything and treating it like it's an emergency, while at the same time, and just saying, "Oh, did you see what so-and-so celebrity said how could he say that?" and things like that, and just really not to have a knee-jerk reaction to everything, because we've all made mistakes, and I think a lot of us are grateful that social media was not around when we were growing up, and it's just kind of a different world. And you probably can think of a lot of experiences in your own life where you're very grateful. Gee, I'm glad nobody had a camera phone.
Oh, absolutely. And I know, unfortunately, through several of my teenage clients over the years since having these camera phones, is these pictures that go viral can literally force someone to have to move schools and move out of the area in certain situations with
It's a
things
terrible situation.
It's terrible. So adults, so what your mom said, I'm just thinking one of the main things is, like, we need to pause and think, no matter how old we are, before we hit send. Is that?
Oh, you're not kidding.
One of your main manners here?
That is one of the main manners. Just even with email. I mean, one of the theses in the book is that that internet manners extend to every part of our texting, emailing, things like that. Because you can't say, "Well, I'm great on texting, but I'm horrible on email manners," because you don't know where that email is going to be shared. You don't know where anything is going to be shared. We're talking about the Finsta accounts, and they think they're private, but somebody can screenshot it and share it to the internet, and that's and not to scare our kids to death, but that's they need to be aware that that's what could potentially happen.
And Snapchat, which is, Snapchat and Instagram seem like are among the two largest platforms these days. I mean, that
for teenagers,
and it started as a sexting, basically a sexting app, which has evolved into social media and still sometimes used for that, right? To capture images of someone else. And the idea was, oh no, these just kind of slip away and they're only there for 5 seconds, but then all of a sudden people are taking pictures of them.
Not true.
Right. Yeah. So tell us about what your research has shown about that technology.
Well, it's interesting because I also review books for Amazon, and I read a wonderful book called Parent Alert that I highly recommend. It's called Parent Alert, and it gives a wonderful guideline to social media and very balanced. And it was written by two journalists, and it's just an incredible book. And they wrote it with a security expert. And they talked about one of them. They had a video that went viral where one of their daughters realized that Snapchat will track your location. So that's another thing that people need to be aware of, that these apps are tracking your location whether you're aware of it or not. So you really have to be cautious about what's being shared and what's being shared about you.
And so everything is being saved these days, right? I mean, it seems like what we've learned about Facebook and Google and all of the others that you mentioned.
Alexa.
Alexa, right. Everything technologically based is tracking and storing what we do.
Mm-hmm. And these free platforms are not necessarily free, as Mark Goodman, who's the author of Future Crimes, writes, "You're not the consumer, you're the product." So that's something that we need to be able to aware of in our own life, because all that information can also reveal stuff about our kids, and that's a safety issue that gets into an entirely different conversation, how to be safe online, and how to make sure that we're not revealing too much about our kids and how they're not revealing too much. So, but unfortunately, I mean, it's an ever-changing situation with these machines and the internet, the constant stimulation in our brain. It's sort of rewiring our brain. They call that brain hacking. So it's kind of like that pause and think button is even more important in our daily life.
So what do you think are from your research on this book, and I know people are going to go out and read it, so I'm asking you just to give them these teasers here, is what are your biggest takeaways about how do we have manners in this new millennia of for ourselves and what we're to be modeling to our kids?
Well, one of the things in the book is I say iOS DOS, which is kind of the old operating system. I operate smart, don't operate stupid, and just be able to think and pause and realize that we're on camera most of the time. We're on camera or recording through cameras, and even if we're not sharing things are being shared about us, and just to be respectful. A lot of it is about being respectful. And of course, you sound off online whenever you get a bad experience on Yelp. You post a review just to warn people and things like that. But just be mindful. You have tremendous power is, I think, what I would say. You have tremendous power and power of choice, and just always be mindful of that power, and also let your kids be mindful of that. What do you teach your teenagers? I mean, obviously they teach you a great deal, like the Finsta, but what do you guys teach each other about social media?
Well, we do. We try to walk the balance of privacy and trust. So here's the one thing that I was thinking about as the argument of, well, we need to read everything, and it's not you we don't trust, it's other people. And savvy kids, our kids will say, well, that argument doesn't make sense, because if you're trusting me to use this responsibly and know what to walk away from and what not to do. And so what we've learned as parents is, you got to be really authentic and genuine and not come in with a controlling or restrictive approach, and talk about this in a way that does talk about the reality of choice and what happens when people make bad choices and how they stick with people. And fortunately and unfortunately, our kids all know people who've made some very bad choices with social media. And so, there's lots of examples around.
How did they respond to that? How did they respond to that?
In mixed ways. It depends on our approach. You get from I know to listening with open eyes when we've been able to give some real examples, which are unfortunately tragic. So it just depends. With teenagers, it just depends when what kind of mood they're in and how receptive they are, and also, what we found is that they often know more about this stuff than we do. So you have to be careful about coming in as an expert on something when we might not have as much information as they do about these platforms.
Well, I think that's true. And also being of a willingness to learn about the platforms. And also, I think the analogy is, and someone told me this the other day, the analogy is that they don't want to be questioned to death, because the thing is, and that's our impulse as parents, because it's like, how was your day? And then they say, oh, it was good, and things like that, and want to pepper them with a million questions, but that's not always going to go over very well. Or who was at the party? How was the party fun? That kind of thing. Same thing with social media. So if you ask them, oh, what's happening on Instagram or things like that, maybe they give an answer, and you don't pepper them with 20 million questions about what's going on their Instagram exit. And if they say, "Oh, so I cannot even believe what so and so posted. I cannot even believe that they posted that," or something like that, or they say something like, "Did you see what the Kardashians posted?" And then maybe you have a little bit of conversation about that, but probably not an interrogation. It's kind of best to let them come to you sometimes.
You're right. You're right. Interrogation, in my experience, personally and professionally, rarely ever works with a teenager. The other thing that I was thinking about, Kristin, is this thing about social media is feeling like you're going to be behind and not in the know if you're not constantly responding to Snapchat or breaking a streak, or you're not on Insta and seeing what everyone's doing. It seems like it brings this I'm going to be left behind. Anxiety, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, completely. Because you think, oh, I should respond to that like, or those likes, or so-and-so comment on my photo, I should respond. Well, there's no should. I mean, it's not a national emergency. And sometimes you can just, respond with a like or a heart and things like that. And while that's no substitute for real communication. And I think that that's another thing that is helpful to keep in mind is it's supplementing communication. It's not a substitute for communication. I think Katie Hurley talked about that. It's not a substitute for hanging out. And that's true for us as well as for them, because sometimes it's just easier in our busy lives to text someone and not really pick up the phone. And there are sometimes when texting just really works better, say if someone's traveling or whatever, but in-person contact is nice too. And it's very, very to be treasured.
Yes. And so as we are getting very close to the parent footprint moment question, I have one more pre-question for you, which is, if you could give one piece of advice to adults who also happen to be parents about how to manage social media and model good manners, what would that one thing be?
I would say that even though you sometimes can't put the phones away during dinner and have a phone-free zone, sometimes that's just what's needed for everybody to just unplug. And it's not always doable in this world, but just for a little while, just to have everybody be free from the constant devices and things like that, because unless it's for work or what have you, nothing is so terribly urgent. So just to have a little bit of a moment where I know people that say, oh, device-free dinner, you have to surrender your devices at the door or something like that. And that may be doable, but that may be desirable, but it's not necessarily something that you can insist on all the time, like no devices at the table ever. I mean, there has to be kind of a balance.
So a break every once in a while, meals being a good place for a break. Sounds like have some flexibility, but definitely have some time away from the devices and the media.
For everybody concerned.
Everyone.
And I'm guilty of this too. I don't write anything in this book that I'm absolutely scot-free on, because I've been known to be attached to my phone. So it's kind of like it's a learning experience. Yes. I think we all have that. So it's sort of a learning experience for me as I continue this journey of researching social media. It's just a learning experience for me and a reminder to keep learning and to keep relearning.
Yes, this is an experience, a journey, and an experiment for all of us. Okay, Kristin, it is time for your parent footprint moment question. And the question is, tell us about a time when you became aware of yourself as an individual or as an aunt, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your family.
Well, I think for me, we hear a lot about helicopter parenting. And with the teenagers in my life, and even before they were teenagers, I always thought I had to be the helicopter person, making sure everything was okay, making sure I was paying enough attention to them, things like that, because you just want to be involved and spend as much time with them as possible. But the thing is, you can't force that time. And sometimes you just have to let them come to you. And when I learned that, when I did that, it completely changed the relationship, because they know that you're there for them. They know that you love them. Mm-hmm. And whether or not they constantly show it, and I have some wonderful handwritten notes and cards that I treasure from both these kids that makes me aware of just the bond that we share. Whether they express it or not, they're aware of it, and they will come to you, and it will happen. And some of the best moments that I've had with them have been totally spontaneous. And they even teach me about my iPhone. You know, we watch YouTube videos, we share YouTube videos, and they were absolutely excited about the book, and they even contributed their thoughts to the book, which was great, because then it was a family affair. So I think my parent footprint, my aha moment, as it were, was just realizing not to be a helicopter parent or aunt or whatever, mm-hmm. and just let things happen.
Wonderful. And it takes trust, faith, and courage to actually take a step back and do that. And thank you for sharing that. I know that several of us have that same struggle to do so, and I agree with you. It often creating the space, particularly with our teenagers, is often the thing that they need most. And ironically, they will actually come to seek you out if they have that space. Okay, Kristin, thank you so much for talking to us today about this very hot topic of social media. Your book, Ain't You Got No Manners, where can people find this and the rest of your stuff?
Well, and I have to mention that Ain't You Got No Manners won the Nonfiction Authors Association Nonfiction Book Award, Bronze Award, in the Computers and Technology category for 2018. So I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And there's augnm.com, which is my blog site, and has more information about the book. There's KristinJohnson.net, my author site, KristinJohnson.net, and they can also Amazon, and there's also Smashwords, where they can buy the ebook too.
Excellent. Everyone, go and get this great information, and let's all do our best to be responsible as we use this technology and we consider this really important and challenging situation. Should we be friends with our kids on social media? All right. We will keep thinking about that. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening today. I ask you to consider being the person you want your child to become. Let's model how we want them to live by doing it ourselves, with engagement, with passion, with health. Check us out at www.parentfootprint.com, where you can find our Parent Footprint Awareness Training, which is designed to create your vision of successful parenting. And as always, think about the question I ask myself every morning: what footprint do you want to leave?